everybody, and welcome to another episode of I Hate Your Taste in Movies. This is a movie podcast where we make our friends watch the movies we love and see what horrible things they have to say. I'm Jackie.
I'm Jen.
I'm Austin.
You can find us on Twitter at I Hate Your Taste and on Instagram at Hate Your Taste Pod. We'd love to hear from you guys. And now today we're doing a Jen pick, I think. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. With one of these movies, it could be either of you. Honestly, you're both quite cruel. And this time we're doing You're Next. I was going to be like, you are next, but that is not correct. It's You're Next.
Can I just cut in real quick, Jackie, and say that I'm always impressed at how your introduction is different every week. I don't know if you prepare that, but I very much appreciate it.
It's always slightly different. It's fun.
Often more dramatic than the week before.
Eventually I'll top out of the drama and I'll be like, ah!
Maybe it's like a spoiler to how much she likes or dislikes the movie based on how mean the intro is.
It's true. Anyway, you're next.
You're next. Jen forced this movie on us. So Jen, why don't you tell us why you love this movie?
Yeah, so You're Next. It actually had its world premiere at TIFF at Midnight Madness. And I think I've mentioned in the past, I volunteer at TIFF. Austin volunteers as well. But I tend to volunteer at the Midnight Madness premieres because I love it, because it's A, midnight screenings, and B, it's usually like horror, action, genre films, and it's a fun time. And so I was volunteering at the premiere for this one, so I didn't get to see it at the premiere, which sucks. But I do remember, like, it being a really big premiere, and they were, like, handing out the masks of the killers and stuff like that, and people were really into it, and it sounded like a really fun time. So I was like, this movie sounds up my alley. I'm going to watch it as soon as I can. And I did, and I just really loved it. Like, it's pretty simple, but it's got such a kick-ass final girl in Erin that I was, like, so on board. I was, like, cheering watching this movie. And I actually had only seen it that one time, and then I wanted to revisit it for this. So I was like, because after I watched it, it was one of those movies where just I was always recommending it to people and saying I really liked it, but I hadn't revisited it. So I was excited to revisit it again with you guys and see how you felt about it.
Are you telling me that they gave these masks to people who wore them in the audience of the movie theater, and then when everyone left the movie theater, they were just masked lambs and foxes running around the streets? Is this what you're saying?
I like to imagine it was like the opening of Scream 2 and everyone was
say.
running up and down the aisles.
This is horrible. Can you imagine just walking down the street and like a couple rowdy TIFF hooligans run by in masks? I'd be like, well, I'm dead now. My heart has stopped. I am old.
No, me as the tired volunteer getting on the like overnight bus because the subway isn't running anymore. Not even awake enough to be afraid of these people. I'm just like, get me home. I'm done.
What if you got on the bus and the bus driver's wearing one?
I'd laugh, probably.
I mean, that's the main reason I don't volunteer at Midnight Madness screenings, is just it's too late. It's past my bedtime.
Are they always gimmicky? Like Scream 2, is she?
No, that really depends on the film itself. So it's not TIFF that does that, it's the film's producer. So the people who produced You're Next were like, this is a fun slasher, we want people to have a good time, we're going to bring masks.
Right.
So yeah, it's really just up to them. Sometimes they'll give out posters or things like that. I think I mentioned during our Grudge episode when I saw Sadako versus Kayako, they were giving out like Team Sadako and Team Kayako hats. So you get a lot of merch, but it just depends on the movie. I mean, it's a good time, guys. I recommend Midnight Madness for a year that COVID hasn't ended the world. We can all go and have a good time.
Yeah, next year, hopefully, I'll let you drag me to one. Jen and I did get one movie into TIFF this year. We went to the drive-in theater, and we saw a documentary of all the movies to see, but it was fun.
We saw a documentary at the drive-in from the back row, and we're like, oh, there's a lot of text on screens in documentaries, and we didn't think of that.
Yeah, so we missed like a quarter of the movie, but I think we got the gist.
Yeah, we're like, I think this was good.
For me, I've never heard of this movie ever. I didn't know it was a movie, but never heard the title. So my summary went like this. I have no idea. Someone is next? Question mark. And then later I was like, okay, so when I started to play it, like the little icon was a guy in a wolf mask, or so I thought. So I'm like, okay, so it's a bank robbery, and then it turns into a hostage situation, and a mild-mannered banker takes revenge and kills everyone one by one, meaning somebody is next each time.
She turned it into an action movie, essentially.
Basically, I want to watch that movie.
Yeah, whenever you write your plot synopses, I want you to make those movies, because they're always fun.
Hey, Hollywood, call me. I only come up with the idea, and then I expect to be given money for it, and then my involvement ends, because I am not the creative type.
Nice.
Yeah, I hadn't really heard of it either. I feel like I'd heard it in passing, but I couldn't place what kind of movie it was, whether it was like a paranormal thing or a slasher. I figured it had something to do with like maybe a curse or something. I ultimately, yeah, once I saw the poster for it, I guessed it was a slasher about a killer hunting people down one by one, probably taunts them and torments victims before killing them. Very generic slasher summary guess.
Still though, better, closer than mine was, which I randomly decided on a bank.
Yeah, true. Jackie went for full heist movie, which I do love a heist, so
I still want to watch a heist movie.
Actually. So the official synopsis for Your Next, like we said, Austin was a little close in the sense that it is a slasher. It is about a wealthy family getting together at their remote cabin in the woods for a family dinner, and then all of a sudden they are under siege by masked killers who start picking them off one by one, and they don't know why. And then our main character is Erin, who is the girlfriend of one of the sons, and she immediately switches into badass survivor mode and starts taking the killers down one by one. And it is fantastic.
One side note, though, is that it's not like a cabin. It's like a huge-ass mansion, which I do not understand the layout of still. I'm like, this takes place in so much space.
Yeah, I wasn't sure how to describe it. I'm like, it's like a cabin in the woods, but you're right. It's like a house, but it's supposed to be their, like, second getaway vacation home. So it's like a cottage, but a rich person's cottage.
Yeah. So to us, it would be a, like, 7-bedroom home. To them, it's their weekend place.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's rustic and, like, needs fixer-uppering.
Fixer-uppering.
That just got away from me. Thank you guys for always keeping track of every time I misspeak.
We gotta keep you honest, Jen.
Sure, it'll be on a t-shirt by this time next week. Thanks.
That's a Jen mistake.
That could be our new segment, Jen's Mistakes, and then Austin just plays like a clip reel.
Before we get into the nitty-gritty, I kind of feel like this movie might benefit from breaking down some characters, because there's a lot of names and a lot of characters.
Can I try?
So, yeah.
Okay, because I was trying to remember what they were all called. So there's the parents, Paul and Audrey, right?
Yeah, I didn't even know the parents' names.
Yeah, the parents' names are Paul and Audrey. They're the rich-ass parents who go to this rich-ass house. They're joined by their kids. So we have Crispin, who's Aaron's boyfriend. We have Drake, who's another son, I believe the older son, and his wife, Kelly. We have Felix, is the younger son, and his girlfriend, Z. And then another daughter, who I've lost her name, but her boyfriend's Tariq.
Is it Emily?
Or Sarah?
I was going to say Heather. So basically, she has generic white girl name, and we just can't think of which one.
Yeah, so we'll call her generic white girl.
Yeah, in my head, I was like, there's 4 characters who matter, which is kind of Aaron, Crispin, Felix, and Z, and then everyone else is either older brother, the sister, the parents, or the killers.
Well, I also watched it with closed captioning on.
Right, so you probably took more notes of the names.
Definitely.
Wait, did you say Kelly?
I said Sarah, she said Heather. Kelly's the wife of Drake.
Okay, sorry, Amy then.
Amy.
See, we knew it was a generic name.
Yeah, we were close. So that's who they all are. That's the family. And, well, I think they're obviously an estranged family. They're not close. There's a bunch of drama. So I think they're all kind of meeting each other's partners for the first time. I think Kelly is established in the family, but Aaron's new, Tariq is new, and Z are new. They're all meeting everyone for the first time. So, and my impression is that it's been like months to years since they've all been together. I don't know. We're going to jump into why Jackie finds this movie annoying. It's because they don't explain any of that. I'm like, what is happening in this family? They're just like, you don't need to know. All you need to know is that they all hate each other. And
that was one of my major notes. Yeah, I would have liked to have known more about this family.
Right? They really kind of explored it and fleshed it out and had some more interpersonal tension rather than just murder tension.
I think that because we're following Erin and she's our entry point and she's not a part of any of that, she doesn't know about any of that. She just knows, like, they're a bunch of rich people bickering and now someone's shooting arrows at us and this is my life. You know what I mean? True. So while I think if we had followed some of the other family members, maybe then we would have had more of an understanding. But Crispin clearly didn't tell her any of the reasons why he didn't like his parents, why he was at odds with his older brother. Like, he kept all that information from her.
And you said, Crispin really obviously doesn't share with her, which I think that's obvious right off the bat. Like, he's just kind of a little bit more withholding, and she's a little bit more fawning and touchy. It's a very uneven dynamic right from the beginning. But you're right, Erin is our entry point. So we see what she sees, and all she sees is this weird bickering family who obviously has some problems.
Yeah, for sure. So I do kind of want to talk about the opening scene of the movie where you're actually seeing the neighbors getting killed. What are your guys' thoughts on that? Because I really first of all, I loved it. I love murder, basically, I guess. But I also love that it does kind of set you up for almost a different type of movie where you think it is someone who's going to be going house to house, that it is this kind of you're next and you don't really know what's going on.
Yeah, it definitely did set it up for a different movie. You're totally right. I don't have anything particularly intelligent to add about the opening scene. I just, two thoughts. The first was the movie opens on a black screen and all you hear is grunting. And so I like to play the game of, is this sex or murder? I guessed correctly with sex. So that was a fun game that I played with myself. And then my next thought was, how old is this dude? That's disgusting. And then, of course, a few seconds later, we get, like, the expository dialogue that he's, recently left his wife for a younger college student, so that checked out.
Right? And so I had the same kind of thing. I'm like, oh, they're having sex, so these people die immediately. Movie style. I'm like, that was so obviously going to happen. And then I was thinking how unenthused she looked.
Yeah.
I was like, this girl is not into this. Why is she with this dude? And then I was like, I feel like this guy is a married man, and he's cheating. Or maybe it's a teacher-student relationship. Like, I wrote that.
Nailed it.
Immediately, my notes went from like, oh, Jackie's so smart. She figured the plot out. Then I was like, oh, fuck. She's looking out the window. The door is open. And I'm immediately terrified. But I expected, for some reason, I don't know why, I thought someone was going to, like, jump through the window. But this was definitely a creepier, more slow-moving death.
Yeah, I think she kind of is wandering through the house half naked and sees the door open. And I don't spend a lot of time in the wilderness. I don't go to cottages or cabins or anything like that regularly. But she seemed very nonchalant about it. And I'm like, even if there's not a murderer in a pig mask, there's going to be like a raccoon or some shit getting into your garbage. Keep the doors closed. Be more concerned about this.
I thought you were saying like a raccoon was going to be peeping Tom on you through the window. Like,
you don't know.
Hey.
I mean, probably. Maybe
Right.
this is just like a Toronto concern, because we've definitely been like at a restaurant where a raccoon just walks right up to your table and takes your food. But like, it's coming in your house if you leave the door open. Be more concerned.
Yeah, they're smart. And also, hey, horror movie people, if you are like, oh, it's so suspicious that this door is open and I did not leave it open, maybe do a quick search around your house. Maybe be like, did something come in?
Exactly. The raccoon, it's in your garbage.
Or a murderer with the machete.
Yeah, or the murderer, but I mean, at least you won't have to clean up after that.
That's true. It's someone else's problem.
You will be the mess.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, then the college professor, I feel like they do this a lot in this movie where they set people up to be despicable so that you don't care that they get murdered, which is also, to me, in my limited horror movie experience, that seems to happen a lot. They're like, look, sex, cheating, leaving your wife for a college student, drugs. Now you're like, okay, good. Well, they're a waste. Which is a pretty bad message to send in general, but I think that's kind of the way society is going with the drug users and sexually promiscuous. We're already pretty friggin' judgmental and treat them like they're less than, so why not in movies as well? But yeah, he's gross. She's obviously not into the sex, so he's using him for some reason, and so it's fine for them to get sliced and diced.
Is she using him for some reason, or did she immediately regret her decision of running away with her professor to live with him in his, like, cottage? Because maybe you were having your fun affair, and then he's like, I left my wife, and now we're living together, and you're like, oh, I gotta deal with this man all the time?
Yeah, that's a really good point. But also, if that was her problem, hightail it.
Yeah.
You're not committed. You're free, college student. Guess what? Then you don't get murdered.
Maybe she was packing her bag. She was like, tomorrow, I'm out of here. Like, in the middle of the bad sex, she was like, I can't do this anymore. I'm done. I'm out of here. And then...
So close. That's why she didn't have any clothes on. She'd already packed all her clothes away.
Exactly. All she had was those knee-high socks she put on. Because I guess the floors were cold, but not her breasts that were exposed.
Just her shins. Just her shins were cold.
Yeah.
Common problem I've heard.
Yes. In terms of the purposes of the movie, did they? I'm assuming that the neighbors were killed in order to make sure that the family that we're actually following has nowhere to turn to.
Yeah, I think it's a dual purpose. One, it's that they know they're going to run to the neighbors for help or to try to call someone, and they won't be able to get that help because the neighbors are already dead. And then, second of all, it's also setting a potential alibi, or not necessarily alibi, but a potential motive for these killers. If the house next door is everyone's been murdered and there's your next written, and then this house, everyone's been murdered and your next is written, it's a part of a pattern,
Right.
and then they're less likely to be looking at why this one family was targeted.
That makes sense. An escaped psycho serial killer. Yeah.
Exactly. Which, I mean, we will get into this later, but I do not know if they had a good get away with this murder plan, because the police are still going to investigate these two families that were slashed to death, and if nothing of this sort ever happens again, like, what was the long-term goal here? I have some questions about that.
Yeah, we'll have to get into that too, because I also have a lot of questions about what ends up being the plan. But I don't want to jump too far ahead, because I feel like there's a lot to talk about. So I want to talk about Paul and Audrey a little bit. So Paul and Audrey are the rich-ass parents. We see them driving up to their rich-ass fixer-upper, which is crazy. It's massive, honestly. And my question is like, do you get the impression that Audrey is deeply traumatized and troubled and fragile, and they never explain why?
Yeah, they allude to it. I think Crispin at one point says his mother's not well, and that's why they can't have alcohol in the house or something like that, because she's on medication.
Right.
So they never specifically say what is wrong with her, but I do kind of get the sense that maybe she's had some sort of nervous breakdown, she's having some mental health issues, because she is, like you mentioned, very fragile and jumpy, like right at the start, where she hears a noise and then kind of just starts losing her mind, crying outside.
See, I thought that was a reasonable reaction, because that was
To
like
hearing a noise?
Yeah, but it wasn't just a noise. It was like a someone's in the house noise.
It was a huge thump. I'm with Austin. Like, that was big.
So,
yeah, but I don't know. I don't know if I would have taken it to that extreme.
I mean, she was like, someone's in the house, and then she went and stood outside. I feel like that was a reasonable reaction. I didn't love her. I felt like, yeah, she definitely was fragile. I also don't think she was the greatest actress, but...
So that actress is Barbara Crampton, who is like a scream queen from the 80s.
Okay, so I just insulted a generation of horror fans. Cool.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, just letting you know in case you want to cut that criticism out.
Or double down, because
What
really
do
bad
I
at
do?
sleeping.
I'm at a crossroads.
You know Jackie would double down. She'd be like, fuck you, everyone who likes Reanimator.
I don't know. Actually, I think a lot of it fell more on the dialogue than on her performance, because she had moments of like, I thought that was a good reaction to hearing a loud noise in the house. She didn't go investigate. She was just like, nope, I'm out. And like, what do we always yell at horror movie victims for doing? Going to investigate. So, you know, you can't have it both ways.
Counterpoint, when you hear a noise in your house, do you immediately assume it's a killer and go outside? No, because that would be insane. You investigate.
I see what you're saying, Jen. Someone was investigating. Her husband was investigating. But they had also just come home and the door was open. Like, that's
true.
Weird.
That's fair.
But I also feel like she's been attacked before. I think she has history that shows why her reaction was so over the top.
That's totally fair. I could see that. I will just say that, again, the door was open and they blamed it on the workers, and they heard someone upstairs. Would you not think it must be one of the workers?
Yeah, and the thing that sucks is that he looks around and Crispin is upstairs. Paul runs into Crispin upstairs, but obviously he just came into the house, right? Like, he just arrived, he saw his mom outside, and he came in to help.
Right.
So they never look further into the source of this noise. How is Audrey cool just going back in there and sleeping if she's such a mental case? Because I'd be like, well, what was that noise? I am leaving.
The dad lies to her, though, and says that there was nothing up there. He says, we checked the whole upstairs, there was nothing. But as we know, he hadn't checked the whole upstairs because Crispin interrupted him, and he was like, your mother's being crazy, let's just go.
And then we see the door open of one of the closets.
Yes.
Start creaking open slowly in the classic horror movie way.
Yes.
Another little point, when Crispin does arrive, and startles his father upstairs. Why didn't he announce himself? Like, I just don't like when people don't announce themselves in movies. Like, I feel like I don't think I've ever been startled that way by someone in a house or somewhere than I am, because people tend to make their presence known. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
especially, like,
people act in movies
yeah,
like they wouldn't act in real life.
Like, he would walk in the house and be like, Dad, where are you? Right?
Yeah. Or from the end of the hallway, hey, Dad, I am here and I am walking towards you.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's also a thing a lot of time in movies where, like, someone will enter a room and then just stand there, and then they'll, like, turn around and see them and be like, oh, you scared me. I'm like, yeah, it's because they walked into the doorway and froze like an asshole. Like, who does that? Like, just watching you walk around the room, waiting until you notice them.
This is why I have a little note here that says, why do I think Crispin is in on it?
Oh, I know. I was the whole movie. I was like, what's the deal with this Crispin fellow?
I think we'll get there, but at this point, I thought Crispin was in on it, and then I changed my mind. So The movie is good with playing off like the who should you suspect, who's acting the most shady, because we don't know anybody in this family's real motivations or what the backstory is. So all of their weird mannerisms and comments and looks and facial expressions can be taken in a couple of ways. Mm-hmm. Like, are they in on it or are they just a dick? I don't know.
This is where I struggle with the movie, just kind of as we go on. It's going to be a recurring theme where it's like I understand the choices that they were making in terms of not telling us everything, and like we kind of just jump in the middle of the story and are expected to go with it. And I understand that that was a choice, but I can't decide if I liked it or not. And so that's kind of where I am with a lot of aspects of this movie.
Can I just say that the name Crispin is absolutely ridiculous?
I guffawed.
You know how it's spelled, too? I have to close caption. Yeah!
Crispian! Yeah!
What a monster.
Sorry to all of our listeners named Crispin.
Yeah! This family named their children Drake, Crispin, Felix, and Amy.
Yeah. Right? Like,
lucky Amy.
Obviously they like the girl the best, I think.
Yeah, that was very evident. But, like, of all of them, Crispin is the worst name. You can get away with any of the rest.
Yeah. Although, I mean, they do like Amy the best, but it's because Amy's the most likable right off the bat. She's actually like,
definitely is.
Hi, and animated and excited to see everyone and hugging. And the brothers are just like, ooh. And Drake's like punching Crispin, and Crispin's like whining.
Yeah.
It's like, this family is pretty hateable.
So maybe that's a good point to talk about the family dynamics a little bit, because this is not a normal family, or it's not the most likable family, I guess I should say. That we've already kind of touched on the fact that they're clearly estranged. They don't really get together very much. But they're not likable people.
I mean, I would argue that the parents are okay. They're a little detached, and there's a sort of an allusion to the fact that the dad had some shady government contractor job and was maybe doing some not great things, which is how the family got their immense wealth.
But he was in marketing.
Yes, that was the defense. He was only in marketing.
I did make a note of what is a defense contractor?
Like army stuff, like weapons.
Okay, that makes more sense. I had no idea what that meant. I was like,
military industrial.
Do they mean defense attorneys? I was so confused. Sorry, carry on.
Aw, Austin, you're so not American. I love it.
I'm really
Austin's so like pure of heart. He's defending people from the cruelties of prison.
Well, no, I figured it was a bad thing, but I couldn't. I was like, is that a thing? What is that?
He was marketing bombs to drop on the Middle East, basically.
Gotcha. Carry on.
Yeah, so, I mean, maybe they're not the greatest people in that regards, but the parents do seem to be trying a little harder with the kids, whereas the kids clearly dislike their parents for whatever reason, or at least a few of them do. And they also have a really, like, antagonistic relationship with each other. Like, Drake and Crispin are just going at it instantly in ways where, like, I have an older brother. We, like, mess with each other, we'll call each other bitches and jerks and like dumb names and stuff like that. That's just life when you have a brother, but like we've never been that mean. That is very mean.
Drake is immediately a bully, like so quickly, and Crispin's immediately a like withdrawn whiner, and you can tell that they're like in an instant reverting to how they had their dynamic when they were kids. Like they've never got past being like 8 years old, which is super weird.
Yeah, I got that vibe a lot from Crispin, especially, that he's really, like, carrying some sort of chip on his shoulder based on how he was treated as a kid, because they kind of talk about how he, like, used to be fat when he was a kid and they bullied him or whatever, and I guess he feels like he's not the best son. He's not the favorite. He's not the golden child. Maybe he feels a little like neglected, and he just carries that with everything, even though he's like an adult now. And it's like, maybe you should have spent some of your dad's money on therapy, but
Yeah. Or just gotten over it. Like, this seems, from what we see, it seems like such small, petty bullshit. You're like, just grow up, Crispin. Stop being such a dick.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And like, he never even sees his brother, so why does he have such an impact on his life?
It is weird, and I kind of got this when I wasn't sure what was going on with Crispin. I kind of felt like at one point he felt like this was his opportunity to like prove himself, which, I mean, we find out later is not the case, but like that's kind of how I was expecting it to be built up, that like this is his moment to like prove himself to his family and like get over his childhood trauma of being bullied by his older brother. But yeah, he's not very defensible in that way, because like you say, he is just very whiny. He doesn't, I don't know, he reverts to childhood, which I guess is a thing that happens.
Yeah, but like Jen said, I mean, I have siblings. We revert back to like teasing each other, but we've definitely grown up and grown past any kind of small issues we had.
Yeah.
But again, we don't know this family's drama, so maybe it was really deep, maybe it's really abusive, maybe there were some serious issues, but it's just not explored.
I think you get a bit of it when Crispin and his dad are talking, and the dad is sort of saying, like, did you get that fellowship? And he's like, well, no, because of this reason or that reason. And the dad's like, well, no, like, you just needed to work harder and apply yourself, pull yourself up by your bootstraps kind of thing. So
Which
it
is
feels like
reasonable.
Yeah, it might just be like, Crispin kind of expects to be like coddled, maybe. He kind of wants his dad just to bail him out and always be there for him, whereas the dad is like, can you stop being such a whiny brat? You're like 35.
But he's still being so supportive and like trying to encourage him. He's
No,
never
of
mean
course.
about it.
The dad isn't being mean about it. That was me being mean about it.
That's actually really interesting though, because that kind of explains why he would end up in a teacher-student relationship, which he does with Erin. Mm-hmm. So Erin is Jen's final girl, and she's cool, but she's here with Crispin, the whiny loser. And right off the bat, I was like, she's way too good for him. Like, why is she with this douche? And then I was like, oh, his parents have money? Is that why she's with them? And then you find out it's the classic young girl, authority figure, brainwash situation where you think this person is cool and smart and has it together, but the only thing they are is older. I don't think she's very invested. I think she's trying to go along with the flow. She's seeing what happens. Still seems like a fairly new relationship, but it says a lot about Crispin that the only person he can get to date him is an inexperienced, young, naive woman, which is what she's presented as.
And I think that's also why when she does get to the house, he gets really upset about being like teased and everything in front of her, because he's probably put on this air of like, I'm older, I'm experienced, I'm so smart, and he gets around his family and they're like, fuck you, Crispin, you suck, you're a dumb loser, and he's like, no, you are shattering the image I have created.
To be fair, I can feel like that would suck. Like, I can see that being embarrassing in front of your girlfriend, you're trying to impress her, but...
Yeah, of course.
For real, but he's just such a fragile person, like he can't handle it. And it's not even like they're like, fuck you, Crispin, so much it's like noogies and like chubby jokes. And he's just like, stop it, you guys. He's so pathetic. Like immediately you're not feeling 100% on Crispin's side. Mm-hmm. But I just thought he was going to be murdered.
Yeah.
But I mean, we'll see. We'll talk about what happens.
Can I just say the moment that I knew I liked Erin was when they're in the car driving to the house. We kind of alluded to it earlier talking about the mom where he's like, oh, we can't have alcohol in the house because my mom's on all this medication. And then she goes like, okay, so can we stop and get some?
Yeah, and he's like, yeah, smart idea.
Yeah, she's like, you want me to come spend, like, I don't know if they're spending a weekend or what at like your parents' cottage and no booze? Like, do you really want me to get through this dinner with your entire family? Like, we're stopping.
Also, there was wine at dinner.
Yeah, the dad did bring out wine. So I guess maybe the parents were like, we'll have alcohol because the kids are expecting it, but Crispin didn't.
Probably just like dinner wine too.
Yeah, like there's probably that one bottle.
I knew I liked Erin when inexplicably Audrey, the mother, sends Erin over to the neighbors to get milk.
I'm going to interrupt
and she's wearing the world's best pair of jeans. She had the perfect pair of jeans on, honestly. Sorry, Austin.
No, I was just going to say, I just looked it up. The mother's name is Aubrey. Classic, which one is it situation.
Oh, her name is Aubrey, and that's Drake's real name, and her oldest son is named Drake. These people are Drake fans.
Whoa.
Okay, first of all, Drake sucks. He's the worst. He embarrasses Toronto. But also, when was this movie made? What year?
2011.
Was Drake a thing in 2011?
Yeah.
Was Degrassi? When was Degrassi? When was he on Degrassi?
Oh, this was post Degrassi. I think he was a rapper at this point.
Okay.
That
I
is so
don't
embarrassing.
give a shit about Drake, so I have no idea.
I don't think this was a Drake reference. I'm just pointing out the connection.
Back to Aaron's jeans. Did anyone notice? They're like boyfriend baggy with like a cuff. They're like the jeans I've been searching for my entire life. But I also don't look like Aaron, so I couldn't pull them off. But like, I'm like, yes, is this the outfit she has to wear the entire time this movie happens? Because I'm like, I'm always hating the outfit people are stuck in.
Right.
Usually they're stuck in something so impractical or uncomfortable, and I'd be like, oh, I'd always be messing with that if I was running. And like, same with hair in their face. I'm like, I want like athletic clothes and my hair in a ponytail, and I want to be able to like run and fight.
This is why I wear leggings all the time, you know, in case of a possible apocalypse. I gotta be able to run.
Prepared. But I was just thinking, she's in a good murder fight outfit, which I very appreciate.
You should figure out who the wardrobe people were on that and be like,
Send
where
a
did you
little
get these jeans?
I'm your biggest fan. Send me those jeans.
They'll send you a link and the jeans are like $1,000 and you'll be like, never mind.
Sometimes you gotta invest in a good pair of jeans.
Your girl's cheap. But so, yeah, Erin is sent on this errand, and she goes to the neighbor's house. I think she sees the guy sitting on the couch, right? Or does she not look in the window?
She doesn't look in the window. She goes to the door. She hears the music playing, because before the half-naked co-ed was murdered, she put on some music. And that same song is on a loop for like 72 hours or something. So she hears the music and kind of assumes someone's home, but no one comes to the door. And I kind of expected, like, maybe she's going to try to peek in and see them, but I guess she decided that was a creepy thing to do, so she just walked back.
I was glad she didn't, because that's something everyone always does in movies, and it drives me crazy. You don't just snoop around people's houses in real life.
Or, like, if they try the door and come in, and I'm like, if I'm knocking, I'm knocking. I'm not opening your door and looking in.
Exactly. No, Jackie, I see you gesturing to say that you snoop in people's houses, and I should specify that if I'm out on a walk, I am absolutely looking in everyone's windows. I'm just saying.
It is the most fun thing to do.
I'm just saying, if I'm knocking on someone's door, I'm not going to go snooping around the house to see if they're home when they're not answering the door.
That's so true. And, like, it's such a vulnerable position to be in if you're, like, creeping through their window and they're like, hi, and you're like, oh, fuck, sorry. I'm normal. Can I have some milk, please? You can get the fuck off my property. But the reason I said that is because they show what's on the inside of the cabin, like where the murdered co-ed and teacher have been, and he's been propped on the couch in some way, but you only see like part of his head. And I was like, oh, she's gonna like open the door and see him, and his head's gonna be half gone. That was my like prediction, but it doesn't happen, obviously. But he is propped up there, and I feel like you know that for later.
Yeah.
Comes into play later on.
Sure does.
I think that also shows like how much the killers thought out the night, where it's like, oh, maybe they'll run to the neighbor's house, so we'll have him propped up so they can see the silhouette and think someone's home.
Oh, that's creepy.
I think the killers had some fun. I think they had a good time.
I feel like I would have maybe actually liked this more if they seemed more sadistically thrilled. We'll get to the killer's portrayal, I'm sure, in a little bit, but the glee is missing, which I would have liked. But anyway, back to the family. This is also when Amy and her boyfriend Tariq arrive, and Felix and his girlfriend Z, who immediately you're like, Z sucks.
Right?
Yeah.
Like immediately you're like, you are the rudest, whiniest, most judgmental looking, like brat child woman, like smoking and like refusing to talk to anyone. I'm like, why did he bring her?
Yeah.
She sucks.
Yeah. Well, that just tells you what you need to know about Felix, too. That he's like, this is my girlfriend. We're, like, bratty and, like, emo.
Totally emo. I was going to say goth, but they're not. They're just, like, on the whiny end of emo, where they're just like, oh, I want to wear a shirt that has a band on it. Ugh. And then they sit down to dinner and start fighting. So I was like, this family is a powder keg. Someone wants to kill the parents and get money.
Yep.
I bet it's Crispin.
Nailed it. Spoilers.
Sort of spoilers, but then I went back on my own writings.
Yeah,
I just wanted to sound smart.
I was going back and forth a lot on Crispin. I kept expecting, this is kind of jumping ahead a little, we'll get to the attack scene soon, but like, every time they did show a killer, I kept expecting it to be Crispin.
Oh.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
That'd be very interesting, because he's finally like fighting to get the respect that he never got through violence.
But no, he's just a wimp in every aspect of his life.
He's a quote-unquote pacifist.
Oh, such an annoying statement.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
Should we talk about the initial attack scene when they're sitting down for dinner?
Yes. I love it. This is one of the things in the movie that I think is really unexpected, which is that they go with the killers are outside, just like firing a crossbow into the house. That's not something I would want to see in a movie. Not necessarily not want to see, but not expect to see. I would be like, oh, the killer's going to pick them off one by one. It's going to be a lot more like cat and mouse. And they were just like, no, fuck you. Siege time, crossbow.
I liked it.
Yes,
I had huge problems with it because it is so easy to avoid being shot by a crossbow.
That is true.
And most of them did.
No, they 100% didn't as many as they could. The second one person gets impaled by a crossbow, you crawl. You shouldn't be standing. You shouldn't be walking. You shouldn't constantly look out the windows, which they did the entire movie. Erin's, who is the smart one, spends half her time gazing out windows, even though she knows there's a psycho with a crossbow. I had so many issues with that.
Fair, but I think at that point the crossbow was out of commission.
No, the whole time she's being survival Erin, she's staring out windows. In the kitchen.
No, I know. But I'm saying I think at that point they weren't using the crossbow anymore. They had
she didn't know
crossbow
that.
at the beginning. I mean, hoping that they're out of ammo, I guess.
Even all the way to the end of the movie, they have a crossbow on their back and they're tormenting people with a crossbow. Like, she's making a pretty broad assumption to think that there's no more bolts for the crossbow.
It is true. I'll give you that. I assumed it was one person that had the crossbow. Was that not right? I guess they all had crossbows. But...
No, I think maybe there was only one.
Yeah, I think there might have been only one.
But so Tariq gets hit first.
Yeah.
It takes them forever to notice, which was kind of funny.
They're too caught up in their own bullshit to notice that Tariq was shot in, like, the face with a crossbow 2 feet away from them. Because they're just like, pay attention to me.
He just stands there, kind of like spazzing while standing, which is a very weird reaction to brain impalement.
Yeah.
But, okay. Which is sad. I was like, Tariq might be a douchey filmmaker, but I already kind of liked him more than anyone else. And I was like, no, Tariq, don't go. Don't go to the window. You know something bad's going to happen if you go to the window.
Yeah.
But it's kind of cool because I guess I expected it to make a lot of noise, and it didn't. Mm-hmm. Like, it just kind of cleanly pierced the window, cleanly pierced his skull, and they didn't, like, it wasn't like a huge crash, right? So it's almost conceivable that it was a surprise to the people who were sitting at the table.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they were so wrapped up in their own bullshit.
Oh, Tariq. And then immediately Aubrey's like screaming and standing up and like, they're like, get down. And she's like, I'm panicking. And I'm like, you're annoying. I hope you die.
Yeah, I think my note here was like, oh my God, this actress. So sorry, Jen. I think I have to double down.
It's fine.
I'm kind of with Austin because she was, I think it was the character who sucked, not the actress. But I was just like, I kind of have that frame of mind, which the movie wants you to have, where it's like, oh, she sucks, whatever, just die, get over it, get out of here, like, you're just a lead weight, cut it.
Did you guys catch while this was happening, when all the crossbows are coming in and everyone's panicking, that Felix and Z immediately moved themselves to safety?
Well, I noticed that they do that. I didn't necessarily pick up on it right away, but they do that throughout the movie, where they're just
they run
very
together.
nonchalant about everything.
But they always, whenever something happens, they're like at the doorway together immediately. It's like they definitely have at least a beat of anticipation. No shock, no like fear, frozen response. They're just like, now it is time to move, which you're right, so unnatural in that kind of situation.
Yeah, I think the first time when I watched it, I didn't necessarily pick up on that because it sort of just seemed like everyone was going everywhere when this happened. They were like flipping the table over, they're shouting, get down, and then they were like cowering in the corner. And then it was now rewatching it with the knowledge that, spoilers again, they are involved in setting this whole thing up. It's not really spoilers, we're discussing the whole damn movie.
We're going to spoil it anyway. And we kind of have to spoil it in order to really talk about it.
But basically, it was watching it knowing the knowledge that they were in on it that I saw how immediate it was that they didn't panic or freeze or do anything. They just kind of like, everyone was like, oh my God, crossbows! And they just got up and walked to the next room. And I was like, oh, they knew this.
Suspicious.
Interesting. If anyone had noticed that. Crispin, I guess, is useless because he didn't run to the next room.
Right. Well, he's got to prove himself, Jen.
Yes.
Sort of, but he doesn't.
I do have a note about this scene, and while you talk about Felix, the one thing he did contribute to this conversation, or to this moment, was he yelled cell phone jammers because suddenly no one has signal or service, of course. And so I kind of wanted to touch briefly on this because I was listening to another podcast a while ago, and they were talking about how cell phones are set up in horror movies because they ruin horror movies right away. The second someone has a cell phone, it's like, well, problem solved, call someone. So I thought it was kind of funny that he was very like, there must be a cell phone jammer, which now it makes sense. Like it was, I think we see it in a chunk of his car. It just felt very like, okay, we had to get that out of the way. So now we know that no one can use their phones.
It was also like, if I was Felix, I wouldn't be so bold with telling people what's actually going on. I'd want to try and appear as clueless as everybody else and just be like, that's really weird. They must have some way of knocking out the cell phones.
Yeah.
Yeah, be like, maybe they took down the phone line? Question mark?
Yeah, I was like, maybe they took out the tower or like did something crazy. Who knows?
Yeah. It just always kind of makes me laugh where it's like, oh, no service. Or like, oh, it must be a cell phone jammer.
Yeah.
We can't have a cell phone in a horror movie.
Yeah, you gotta take those out. They've ruined horror movies.
Yeah, although in this one, like you said, it does make sense that later you see there actually is a cell phone jammer that they brought because they were trying to murder a bunch of people and have them not call the police. So, like, that's, again, good thinking on the killers. They had some part of their plans figured out.
Also, I guess good for Felix to know that his parents don't have a landline.
Interesting, because this isn't their normal house. I don't think anybody's been there before, so how would they know? Felix did some research, I guess. I.e., he just asked his mom, probably.
Yeah, I guess that's an easy one to find out, to be like, hey, Mom, what's the number for the cottage so I can call you there?
Yeah.
And she'll be like, we don't have the phone set up yet. And he's
or if it was just an easy snip, 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 and landline's down. But
so this is where people start dying. Tariq is first, and then there's a biggie.
Yeah, so I'm not even sure, is it Felix or Crispin who suggests this plan of, like, running outside to the cars to get away?
I think it was Crispin because he wants to be gone.
Yes, it was Crispin.
He wants it to be himself. He's like, I've got to get out of this house. I'm a quote-unquote pacifist. I need to get gone. So I think in his mind, he's like, I'm going to go, but not the route Amy decides to take.
Yeah, so the plan somehow is someone is going to run to the car to get away and get help, which Aaron is saying to them, no, this is a dumb idea. We don't know how many people are out there. Like, we have no idea what's happening. Like, let's fortify the house and not run out into the line of fire.
Exactly.
Maybe?
She is smart.
And then Crispin literally restrains her when she's trying to do this because she's trying to, like, go stop Amy, and Crispin, like, holds her down and back. And I'm like, Crispin, you suck so much. Like, even before knowing that he was involved in the killer's plot, like, I was just like, you're such a shitty fucking boyfriend. I hate this man so much.
Yeah.
Let her speak. She is right. She is smarter than you.
Yeah, he cannot wrap his mind around that. He totally just thinks she is a stupid young idiot that he gets to control. She's like, nah, bitch, not how it's gonna work.
Yeah. She's like, guess what I haven't told you? That I'm a fucking badass.
Right?
But unfortunately, no one listens to her, and little Amy runs through the door and...
Dumbest plan ever.
Yeah.
I think I looked away at this point.
They're like, take a 10-meter running head start. We'll open the door at the very last minute, and you burst out the front door. Like, I feel like they would have had a way better plan to do it stealthily. Like, we'll open the door, and you drop out and, like, go into the bushes and crawl, and then, like, get your bearings and then run or something. Or even, like, we'll go out a window or a back door.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you want to be stealth, maybe don't use the front door. But I think that's also, like, Crispin and Felix at that point are trying to get her killed. Because I think it's Felix who's like, get a running head start. Because he knows she's going to need momentum to hit the wire that is going to slit her throat.
There's a garrote strung across the front door at neck height. And she runs full force into it. And it is disgusting. It is the slightest bit of funny the way her legs fly up.
I straight up didn't watch this. So.
Just the tiniest bit, because I didn't necessarily want Amy to die.
No, she was the most likable of the bunch.
Right, she was a little bit whiny and weird, like all of them.
A little bit snobby with the underground film, but, you know.
Yeah, but I was like, that was it was very cool that it was so unexpected. I thought she was just going to run and get immediately shot. Like, I was expecting a pretty standard death, but a neck height garrote wire that she runs into, which slits her throat, and then they all have to, like, watch her struggle, grasping at her neck, bleed to death. Like, her parents have to watch this.
Yeah.
That's cold.
Also, as we said, like, she was kind of clearly the parents' favorite. Like, the dad especially was like, my Amy, my baby Amy. And then he has to watch her bleed to death in front of him. And he's probably like, this is the worst moment of my life. I saw my other kid get shot, but I don't really give a fuck about that. Amy!
Oh yeah, we didn't talk about that Drake also got shot in the shoulder, so he's got...
Yeah, but he lives for quite some time, so...
Yeah, but that's why he couldn't run, he couldn't do the running.
Right.
Breaking down their plan a little bit, so if Crispin wanted to get out of the house, because he didn't want to be around the violence or whatever, and he was fighting to run, he was, like, arguing with his family that he should do it, I guess we're to assume that he would have known that the wire was there and he would have just ducked under it.
I think so.
Or he would have gone out another way. He would have been I'm going to go the back door or something. But I think he would have known.
That's also ballsy, though, because if the killers... I mean, I assume the killers nobody looks like, but you gotta be on your A-game to realize
really
who's coming out of the house.
Yeah. And then also, like, you have to trust that your brother didn't double-cross you, because what if Felix was like... Because it seems like Felix was the one that was more in contact with the killers. What if he was like, if Crispin lives, fine, but if he doesn't, also fine.
Yeah.
I just really want to know why they hate their parents so much that they want, like, not even just to kill them, but to kill their beloved children in front of them. Like, take them to the edge of despair and then kill them. Like, that is serious white-hot hate. Why?
Yeah, my theory, we will get into, I guess, later, but... I think that maybe they had this kind of passive plan for a while of like, let's get our inheritance by killing off our parents. Maybe we'll poison them. Maybe we'll do something really simple. And then Z enters the picture and she seems a little more sadistic, a little more like she enjoys the death and murder. So maybe she was like, no, Felix, if we're going to do this, let's do this.
Go big or go home.
Yeah.
I also made a note around here that I think it's around this point where Crispin is like, he's talking, he's like telling them what's going on a little bit, and he's panting a lot. So he's like panting, and then he says a couple sentences, and there's like no trouble breathing at all. So I'm like, something's fishy here. Either he's a bad actor, or he's putting something on, because he was like panting, and then he would talk, and it would be fine, and he wouldn't be out of breath at all. Then he'd go back to panting. Did any of you notice that?
I did not.
No, but it makes sense that he's like putting on a show the entire time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're right. He is a bad actor. Like, not the actor, but Crispin is a bad actor.
Right.
He's very, like, obviously, you know, acting creepy and bothered, like he knows something, but he's not panicky the way everyone else is. And he's just, like, a little suspicious, and you don't know why. So,
right.
He's definitely not presenting what he should be presenting in this situation.
And I think that's also why he wants to remove himself from the situation. Like, he later says that he just didn't want to see all the death and carnage, but I think he just also was like, I was not actually prepared for what this was going to be like. I don't know how to keep my cool and how to have people not realize, especially Erin, like have her not realize that something's wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So now they decide to take Aubrey upstairs. First, Erin clears the second floor. Poorly. Erin, I thought you weren't a moron. What happens here? She doesn't even check under the beds or in the closets or anything. She's just like, it's fine. Put Audrey in the bedroom, let her sleep it off. Yeah. And then you have the classic horror movie thing that nevertheless gets me every goddamn time of someone slowly crawling out from under the bed.
Didn't watch it.
Oh, and then the mask comes up over the side of the bed. It's awful. I did not enjoy that. I was like, oh, he's hella killing her. But I was like, this is kind of on Erin at this point.
I feel like it's also a little on all of them. Like, why would you leave someone alone? Like, even Aubrey saying, like, to her husband, she's like, don't leave me. And he's like, I have to go check on the kids. And I'm like, stay together. Yeah. Like, don't just leave one person upstairs unattended for an extended period of time.
Right, like, lie her down in one of the 6 ground floor rooms.
Yeah.
Like, they have to go to a bedroom.
Well, didn't they say, like, no, the only room that doesn't have a window is the bathroom, or is the basement? So, like, there's nowhere, I guess they're thinking second story is a little safer.
Yeah, because I think Erin had gone and checked all the windows to make sure they were locked, thinking no one can get in, not realizing someone was already in. And then think that's why they thought, oh, she'll be safer up there, because if someone's going to break in, they're going to break in on the ground floor.
I guess, but, like, if you just, like, draw the drapes, they're not going to be able to crossbow you. So, like, you're equally as safe on the ground floor. And, like, yeah, I feel like the first rule of horror kind of situations is don't split off. Like, stay together.
Yep. I did like that Erin said whenever they suggested going into the basement, and she was like, absolutely not. She's like, that's a bad idea. They could just lock the door, pour some gasoline, and light a match. I was like, damn, this girl's seen horror movies before. So, and
yeah,
then
she's lived one.
Yeah, well, yes. But I thought that was going to come back. I thought that
too.
would be coming back into play.
I think that, not necessarily the pouring gasoline and lighting a match, but I think the basement was part of the plan, because there was a couple times where Felix was like, well, we can go to the basement, and then they cut the power, and he was like, I think the breaker's in the basement, and I'm like, okay, I see what you're trying to do. You're trying to get everyone maybe in the basement where there's only one way in, no second way out, so that then the killers can come do whatever and get them there. Like, I think that was part of his plan, but they had to deal with Aaron, who, like, understands how to survive horror movies, and was like, guess what's a bad idea? The basement. Yeah. Which, by the way, is this a flashback to our Night of the Living Dead argument? What's better, the ground floor or the basement?
We could revisit it, because let's fight.
I don't know. I don't know. It's a good last resort.
It depends on who your enemy is.
Yeah.
And what your weapon situation is. But yeah, that's a theoretical. We don't have to get into that. But they kill Aubrey. They machete her hard.
Yeah, pretty brutally. And then they write "You're next" on the wall.
Can I say that I love that they spell it correctly? They even have the apostrophe.
Yes.
I was like,
yes.
I did respect that. Yeah.
Grammar matters.
It's not like the letter U and then an R and then next.
No, they took their time with that. They had a little paintbrush, they dipped it in the blood, and they started writing.
Yeah, and they made that apostrophe big and, like, obvious. I'm like, thank you.
Good penmanship.
Do you know what happened? One time in the run-through, someone put the wrong "your," and the other guy gave him a hard time, and he was like, you know what? I'm gonna show him. Look at that fucking apostrophe. Look at that R-E. Like, I can do this. Stop nagging me.
I hope so. For some reason, Kelly is left alone in Aubrey's room. Like, we're a group of people under siege. They act really, like, Aaron is very smart, but everyone is so much dumber. They're not even normal people dumb. They're so incredibly dumb.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you could make the argument that this is a pretty, like, privileged family. These kids probably haven't had a whole lot of hardship in their lives. I'm not saying that justifies or that anyone who's privileged is dumb, but I feel like that's kind of what the movie is saying, that these people haven't really had to do much at all in their lives.
I guess, but it's like basic herd mentality. Like, you just stick with your group.
Oh, that makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, I think there's also, like, the aspect of no one really knows how they're going to react in an emergency situation until you're in it. So while they're, like, half of them are arguing, Kelly's upstairs by herself, Aaron's downstairs trying to get weapons and barricade doors and be a smart person, and none of them are really communicating with each other, which is his family's whole problem in the first place.
Yeah, I would have liked to have seen Aaron take more control of the group right away, but then I guess that wouldn't set up for all the murders that are coming.
Yeah. And I think it is... Yeah, also hard for her to take control when 3 people at this point are working against her, but she doesn't know that.
Very good point. Very good point.
Yeah, so Kelly panics and leaves. She, like, sees a killer.
Runs past everyone and no one makes a move to stop her. They're like, oh, Kelly's running.
Yeah.
Hey, Kelly, where you go? All right, bye, girl.
Yeah, she just runs past the bodies, out the open door, out across, I don't know where she thinks she's going, and then... Crispin is like, okay, this is my chance. I will now escape. So he runs out as well. And then we don't see where Crispin goes, but we do see that Kelly does try to go to the neighbor's house where they've already been slaughtered.
And then she did.
Yep.
Her death is very visceral.
Yeah.
I don't know why that one really stuck in my mind. So yeah, she goes to the house. She thinks she sees a neighbor alive, pounding on the glass. Also, I'm like, Kelly, girl, look behind you once or twice if someone is chasing you through the woods. It's like, she's pounding on the glass, but she's never looked behind her. I'm like, she's obviously going to get smoked.
Yeah.
So anyway, guy tosses her through the window. And then he plays, like, croquet with her head and an axe. Where he, like, stands on her shoulder and takes a big old golf swing and clunks her in the side of the head with the axe.
Yeah, it's great.
The sound effects in this movie are... Yeah. They're squishy. There's a lot of...
There's sweat thunks, for sure.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a squishy sounding movie.
But the creepiest part of that is that the bunny mask guy, he axes her in the head, and then he sits on the couch beside the professor's dead body, and he's just kind of like, let's do a day's work.
Catching his breath.
Yeah, just needs to take a breather, yeah. So question, let's say you are Kelly. You somehow have run out of the house and passed all the killers, and you get to the neighbor's house. Are you banging on the door loudly, not looking behind you? Are you breaking into the neighbor's house, not giving a fuck? Or are you going to find somewhere in the forest to hide?
I always think I would do the forest. Like, if it's a real legit forest, there's some hella, like, brush you can literally disappear into. I would smear myself in mud and, like, cower like a complete animal.
Maybe I didn't pay close enough attention. I didn't get the sense that this house was particularly isolated. Like, I know it's rural in the sense that it's like a big mansion, but I didn't get the sense that the neighbors were that far away. So I probably would have just kept running. Like, I would have tried to get to like a main street. I don't even think I would have bothered with the neighbors. I would have just run.
Then tell me if I'm wrong, but I feel like they said in the beginning that there was only those neighbors and then there was nobody around for miles.
Yeah, I know they said they only had that one neighbor.
Okay.
So I'm not sure.
I did hear them say it'd be nice to have a neighbor or something.
Yeah.
Because it didn't seem that isolated to me, but okay.
Yeah, I think that you're right. The way they showed them driving up and they passed the house and they showed the house, like, and they didn't do a very good job of giving you the feeling of, but I think we're supposed to believe that they're very far from
then yes.
anyone other than those neighbors.
Then yes, the woods. Hide until you make sure no one's around.
And also, like, these are just average Joe killers. We have no reason to think they're, like, trackers or hunters or whatever, so they probably don't know shit about the woods either. So you have a pretty good chance of just burying yourself in leaves and being like, I am one with the earth.
Well, that's an interesting point, too, and something that I want to talk about is how the killer, and you touched on it, Jackie, how you didn't feel like they were getting the glee that you would have liked to see out of a slasher movie. But I really liked that the killers were fallible. Like, they got whacked in the nuts a bunch, and, like, they got injured, and they were groaning, and, I mean, this also ties into Aaron being a badass, but I liked that they could be killed and they could be injured.
Yeah, that part was good, but they just weren't, other than the fact that they had weapons and surprise on their side, like, they didn't seem like the smartest.
But they're also just assassins.
Yeah. Well, though, I don't even know if they are assassins. I'm like, did he just hire...
Well, they've been hired
like,
to be assassins, yeah.
Yeah, but they're not, like, professional assassins. They're just guys hired to kill somebody.
Well, they have pretty good aim with the crossbow.
But they also mentioned that they were ex-army, so they've probably killed people before. Not necessarily as an assassin. But you're right, we don't actually know their level of expertise in assassin skills, but we also know that they were told to come to this house and murder a rich family. Like, they probably don't think they need to do that much. They're like, okay, we'll fire the crossbow, put the wire up to slice someone's head off, and then, you know, sneak in through the windows and grab and kill them all. The end. So yeah, maybe you don't need to hire the most elite assassins for that. You didn't need the expensive, fancy guys with trackers and cool...
You get what you pay for, though. That's it.
Yeah, so Erin, like, at first you were like, oh, she's smart and resourceful. Like, she's the one who has the idea to use the dining room chairs as cover when they're running past the windows.
Sorry, really dumb. Just crawl. What are you doing?
You know what? It's better than what everyone else was doing.
Yeah.
True.
But she had that. She was gathering weapons and making sure she had them on her, checking windows and doors to make sure no one can get in. And then... what happens first? Is it someone getting into the kitchen and she stabs his hand?
Yeah. So she's still locking things, I think, where someone busts through the window, kind of gets her in a chokehold. She stabs his hand hard enough to trap his hand and arm against the wall.
Yeah.
Yikes. Good job.
Yeah, that was amazing. And then she just goes back for more weapons to try to finish the job, but he manages to escape. Sorry, I'm trying to remember this movie chronologically, and apparently I can't. I don't remember if this is, like, immediately after or later, but where the killer starts to approach her and she, like, flips him and beats the shit out of him till he dies. Amazing.
Yeah. He comes at her and she kicks him in the nuts, hits him in the knee with a meat cleaver, and then meat cleavers his head for an excessively long amount of time, one might say.
Yeah. Just goes for it, and Felix and Z are just sitting there watching and going, oh shit. Oh. Situation has changed.
I did enjoy when she, like, lifted his head and was like, does anyone know this guy?
Yeah.
Not only does she do that, she immediately takes his mask off, which, again, is a pet peeve, especially, I love them so much, in the Scream movies. Every time they knock down the killer and he's unconscious, and they're like, do I take off his mask? I don't know. No, I'll run away. And she just, like, takes the mask off. Like, who's this?
Yeah.
I
who's
like
the killer?
that she did
Anyone?
that. Because when the guy was in the window, I was like, grab his mask. Like, when he was, like, pinned or whatever, I was like, get his mask. So I like that she ended up doing that.
I also like that she calls Felix and Zion and she's like, thanks for helping.
Yeah.
And they're like, it looked like you had it handled. And she's like, yeah, cool, thanks.
Yeah, which is great because she probably thinks they're just like dumb, spoiled rich kids who don't know how to do anything. But they were like, we're not helping because we know that guy.
Yep. And so we kind of get eventually, this is around the point, right, where we start figuring out Erin's backstory. Her and Z are like building weapons, I guess, or they're putting nails in boards.
Yeah, they're doing it Home Alone style, but they're putting nails in wooden planks underneath the window. So if the killers come in, they step in nails, which, love. Hilarious.
Didn't expect that to work, but here we are.
It's because she was smart and she put down one really close and one farther away, so the killer saw the one farther away and purposely put his foot close.
Okay, I missed that little detail.
But also, I thought people would be a little bit more careful of how much pressure they put on their foot immediately. Whew. He's like, I think I'm gonna just jump and stomp all my weight down on the ground right into these nails. Because I thought you'd be like, you put your foot out and you kind of like tap it around, right? Be like, tappity tap, where should I put my foot down? That's what I would do anyway.
He just went for it.
No, adrenaline was pumping. He went for it. But yeah, when she and Z are working on those together, Z kind of super casually is like, so how do you know how to do all this stuff? Just out of curiosity, not because I'm planning to defeat you later. And then Erin reveals basically that she grew up in Australia with her dad in some like outback doomsday survivalist camp, learning how to like prepare for the end of the world and fight off attackers and stuff. And Z's just like, cool, chill. Anyway.
Yeah, she basically has the perfect training for the situation.
Yeah.
Did you want to talk about Final Girls at all, Jen? I saw that you had that in your prompt.
No, not necessarily like Final Girls in general, just that I think Erin is such a good one. I think that there's a lot of Final Girls who... Like, I love Final Girls that are smart and resourceful and fight back, and she's just the absolute epitome of that. Like, she's not, running aimlessly, she's not locking in, like, closets and hiding and crying, she's not making a ton of missteps. Like, obviously she's not perfect, she does mess up sometimes, she gets injured, some of her plans don't work perfectly, but I love a smart badass, and that's exactly what she is.
She didn't survive as a fluke.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, some Final Girls get there despite their best efforts. But she really fought for it, for sure. But this, I guess, at this point in the movie is when there's the big reveal. We've discussed already. To me, it was a huge reveal because the dad, Paul, is like looking around upstairs. He realizes that these bad guys have been living in his home for obviously a couple days.
Which didn't make sense to me. Because he's like, they've been watching us for days. You just got back.
Yeah, and why would they stay there when they knew from Felix when they were going to arrive? And also, why would they even want to be there? You show up after everyone's home and attack from the outside, right? Like,
well, someone was in the house.
Yeah, like, he didn't need to be.
Theoretically not. It makes sense to me to have one person on the inside, but since they knew the family was getting back that day, but just, the dad says, like, they've been watching us for days, but we just saw them arrive, like, earlier that day.
I think it was actually the day before.
Okay, still.
I think it was the day before because they said when the dad and Drake and I think Crispin were there, they were like, Felix is coming tomorrow or something like that. So.
Oh, that's true. We do see an overnight.
Yeah. So
also,
it's
though,
the next day.
Technically you have Felix, Z, and Crispin on the inside, so they can just like open doors and stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm not a killer, I don't know their plans. Sure. They needed one on the inside, sure.
I think they just had a really ambitious plan, like I said, for that night, or leading up to that night with the neighbors too. Like, they had a really ambitious kill everyone tonight, do lots of weird stuff plan. I don't know if they put as much thought into their getaway.
That's actually very interesting.
What if things go wrong?
Maybe that's why they stayed at that house, is because they, like, the day before they had to kill the neighbors. Like, so they might have been there for a couple days setting everything up. Okay, that makes sense. But this is the part where we find out that Felix and Z are behind it all.
Right.
In the most horrible way. Poor Paul, the dad, he's like talking to them, and a bunny or masks person comes up and just like slits his throat wide open.
Yeah.
And Paul's like clearly reaching for Felix. And Felix is like, don't touch me, man. Just die. I don't think Paul ever knew what was going on. Like, he was too in shock and dying to understand, but like, Felix could give two shits about his dad. It is disturbing how little he cares about his dad dying in front of him.
Yeah. And then Felix kind of says to the killer, like, oh, did you have to do that right in front of me? And you see the killer, like, take headphones out because he was just listening to music the whole time. And he's like, oh, sorry, were you saying something? And it's like, are you just, like, in the zone? You've got, like, your AirPods on. You're, like, listening to some, like, I don't know, techno music. Just really, like, go hard as you're slitting a man's throat.
That's exactly what was happening.
It would have been funny if he was listening to, like, a podcast instead. He, like, takes it out and it's, like, a true crime podcast.
About him.
Yeah. It's like, and then the killer, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, oh, good idea. I'll try that next time.
So yeah, this is around where we kind of... Oh, well, this is when Z tries to seduce Felix by getting it on next to his mother's dead body. I was thankful that Felix was like, no.
I wrote down this exchange because I found it so hilarious.
This is like my only quote, you guys.
Oh, sorry, I'll save it then. Or can I say it? It's just so funny.
You say it.
Where she's like, I want you to fuck me on this bed next to your dead mom. And he goes, what? Why would you even say something like that? And then she goes, you never want to do anything interesting.
Yeah, but then he goes, I don't think that's a fair criticism.
Yeah.
He goes, then fuck me next to your dead mom.
It's like,
it's so weird.
Oh, see, I know
so weird.
Austin, you're like, I don't like some of the dialogue, but I love some of, like, this dialogue, like, their dialogue, where it's so heightened and bizarre.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I love it. And this is also where I get my theory that, like, Z's the one who really enjoys the murder. Felix
like,
is sort of just...
a little bit.
Yeah, Felix is sort of just means to an end. I want my money, I'm a dumb kid. And Z is just like, fuck me next to your dead mom.
I really like that they reveal that the killers, two of them's names are Tom and Craig. I'm like, oh my god, could you be more generic?
It's a nice contrast to this family who's full of the most ridiculously named people.
Very true. Yeah.
So I think before Crispin comes back, Erin lures or gets chased into the basement by one of the masked men. And she sets the camera flash to go.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, how dumb do you have to be to fall for that? Like, it's at regular intervals. It's obviously not a human operating this camera. It's set on a timer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, why would you walk slowly towards it, leaving your back exposed?
I guess maybe he thinks she's hiding behind it, using the flash to see where he is. But she's using the flash to see where he is while hiding not behind it.
Because she's smart.
She's smarter than, I guess, anyone.
Just like, why don't they do this, like move their head side to side when they're walking?
Well, I also was thinking about this throughout the movie, but those masks they're wearing don't give you a lot of, like, visual ability. It blocks a lot of their sight. Like, it's very small eye holes. It's kind of sitting weird on their face because it's, like, cheap party masks. It's really not the best idea for the killing. So I think once they've killed, like, a few people, they probably could take them off. Like, you've got the effect, everyone's afraid. You could just be like, all right, mask off now. You're going to die. You're not going to be able to identify me anyway.
I think this also plays into the idea that they weren't expecting it to turn so convoluted, I guess. Like, I think they were probably expecting to kill a lot more people in that initial siege, like, right after dinner.
Yeah, from a distance.
Yeah, and so they wouldn't have had to be up close. Or if they were going to be up close, they probably only expected there to be, like, one person left or something.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I think the killers did not think this would be this hard to kill off everyone they needed to, but they didn't adapt.
Right.
They could have, once they realized, like, Erin was a little feistier than they anticipated, and she's basically the only person left at this point, they could have just bunny mask off, like, shit has to get real now.
Like, but sweep the house, your army, you know how to do this kind of thing, just, like stop individually, like, they did the same mistake as everyone else. Don't separate, go together, sweep the home together, find her, and you kill her. Can't be that hard.
Yeah. No, they're not very skilled at all. And then it's also when Erin's in the basement that she, like, overhears one of the killers talking with Felix. Is that correct? Yeah. And then she's like, okay, great. They are in on it.
Yeah, she hears the whole plan from them. Felix and Z talking to them about the money and how much they've paid them and his inheritance, and they spell it all out exposition style.
It's very spelled out. A lot of this movie, in some ways, like, some things are super spelled out, and then other things are just completely ignored, and it really threw me off.
Yeah. But now she's wised up. She knows what's going on. But there was a really cool scene. I don't remember if it happens now or later. No, it happened before, where she finds Paul, I guess. She finds Paul dead. And one of the Fox mask people is coming at her. And you get the impression that she doesn't see him because he's coming behind her. And then all of a sudden she turns and whips her weapon at him and jumps out a 2-second-story window.
Yes.
One thing I also liked about that is that she continued to limp on her leg the whole time.
Yeah.
Like she had an injury that actually remained an injury, because I feel like that's another thing that happens a lot, where it's like someone will, not even just in horror movies, but someone will get hurt and then it's like the next scene they're fine.
Yeah, she definitely like had a huge shard of glass in her leg, and she did a good job of...
Even when she, at one point she was like rigging the Home Alone style trap at the front door, she was rigging that up, and she got down off of the chair that she was standing on, and she like she was very careful not to put any weight on that leg. I thought that was just a really nice touch.
And I thought it also forced her to do different things. Like before she was doing a lot of like running and moving around the house and kind of like never staying too still. But then when she's injured, she's like, okay, I got to set some traps. I got to evaluate like the first floor a little bit more, go into the kitchen and all this kind of stuff. So it's good that like the injury means something, and it means something to her entire plan.
Yeah, I especially, I like that too when Felix and Z and the killers kind of see her, and she runs out the front door away from them, and they all go to chase her, but she kind of goes around the house and sneaks back in the window, which again, like she wouldn't be able to outrun them because she's injured.
Yeah.
So she's like, okay, I gotta think smarter. So she hops in the window and hides, and they don't realize that she's circled back to the house, so they just waste some time going to look for her. And I'm like, yeah, she is clever. I enjoy.
Yeah, one of the killers thinks that it's possible that she did that, but
yeah,
still a good call.
She's smart. So I guess they have the kitchen confrontation pretty much next, right?
Yeah, it's the next like big beat, I think.
Yeah. So I think she's taken out the killers at this point and is only left with Felix and Z.
Yeah, she stabbed the guy who came to look through the window. She stabbed him right in the head eye, so that guy's dead. So yeah, it's only Z and Felix left.
And this is where the violence turns so fun. So fun.
Fun is the word you use.
Fun is not the word I would use.
Not at all.
So I feel like the violence prior to this was just a little more realistic. Yes, it was stuff like crossbows and axes, but it was still crossbows and axes. Those are weapons. Those are weapons being used for the purpose to kill. Yeah. It makes sense. We get to the kitchen scene. She's like, I'm going to put a fucking blender on your head. And
the moment she plugged it in, I was like, I'm out. You guys can tell me what happened, because I just did not. Actually, I guess she told me what happened, because later on she was like, I put a blender on his head or something, right? Or I put his head in a blender or something.
Yeah.
I think she put a blender in his head. But still, totally nonsensical. A blender's blades are pretty much flat.
Yeah.
They won't go into someone's brain, and it would break pretty much immediately because it's a shitty blender.
Yeah, that's why I just wasn't watching it. I was like, you know what? She plugged something in. I'll get the gist. The sound effects will tell me what's happening.
Yeah, I don't think the turning the blender on did anything much different than smashing the blender into his head had already done. It was just kind of added fun for her and for me.
Sorry.
Fun for her and for me.
We skipped over one little part that I did chuckle at when, I think it's just before, well, it is obviously just before she puts his head in a blender, but she throws a pot of water on him, and like, there's like that second where he's expecting it to be boiling water, and it's not, it's just water. And she's like, it's not even hot. Like, that made me chuckle.
Guys are taking all my quotes.
Oh, sorry.
There's only like 2 quotes in this movie.
I did like that moment.
Funny.
And then she's left with Z, and just stabs her right in the top of the head.
Good.
Love
Z doesn't deserve much notice. I hate Z.
Yeah.
She takes the knife out of her own back and stabs Z with it. Yeah. Let's get it clear that she is like, at this point, she's like, no holds barred, all bets are off, fuck you for putting me through this nightmare of a night just so you can get some money. Like, you are dead.
So, I just wanted to say really quickly about stabbing people in the head with a knife.
Oh, yes. I love this tangent.
It's actually surprisingly easy to do, especially certain parts of your skull are definitely thinner than others, and there's like suture lines of weakness where all your bones fuse together. So it's actually fairly easy to stab someone in the head with a knife, but you can't get the knife out because it's basically vacuum sealed in from something called blood suction. So this is why hunters' knives have those grooves down the side of the blade. It's because that breaks the suction and you can pull it out again. So I was wondering, because horror movies have always been kind of not always accurate technically with this, where you stab someone in the head and you pull it out, and it's just, you can't do that.
Huh.
And also I was thinking about it, theoretically, if you macheted someone in the head, that might be easier to get it out too, because it's such a wide surface area and the suction would be less. But when she stabs Z in the head, I was like, oh, is this the moment where the movie fails? Science! But no, she just left it in there. And I was like, good for you, girl.
All right. Science talk with Jackie.
I love when your science talk is like this, like how to stab someone in the skull. So is it easier if you go like top of the head?
You're looking at the temple as the weakest spot, and then like you can get under the jaw pretty easily.
Right.
And then, I mean, if you're going for a straight kill, just cut the neck is your best option.
I don't like this conversation.
What about the face? If I were to stab someone in the face, what would that do?
It depends on the length of your knife, but if you went through the eye, you'd reach a good part of the brain pretty quickly, and it's a weak entry point as well. You could theoretically go up the nose, but you need a really long... I'm just doing this because I can see Austin.
I know, I can see Austin hiding. It's so funny.
I'm like trying to think of grosser things to say because she's freaking out. Sorry, Austin.
Are you done?
Yeah.
We can finish this conversation offline.
Yeah.
My one little note on this is what I was paying attention to in this scene. After she's killed Felix and Z, they're all just leaning up against the kitchen cabinets. I saw no fewer than 5 dish towels hanging up in that kitchen. Why does a person need so many dish towels?
Rich people.
Rich.
I suppose
also,
so.
maybe they have a staff normally.
That's
and
true.
the staff requires towels.
Yeah. At least 5. There were like 2 on the stove, like 2 on other cabinets, another one hanging out somewhere. This is what I was paying attention to.
Yeah, now I'm thinking, like, this is a good point. Are we really supposed to believe that Aubrey would cook for 10 people by herself all day? No, they had caterers.
Yeah, they sure did. They just luckily left before the bloodbath began.
Yeah.
Or they caught them up on the road on the way out and just like...
So this is when Crispin comes back.
When we get the big reveal. So he calls Felix's cell phone, because Felix had already turned off the cell phone jammer at this point. We see it in his car, so we realize that was a real thing and not just, like, him making up reasons of why the phones could not be working. And then he calls Felix's phone to be like, hey, is it all over? Is everyone dead? I saw that the phones are back on. I'd like to come back home now, but not if the killing is still happening.
Because I'm a pacifist.
Yeah, he does not realize that everyone is dead and Aaron is the one listening to him on the phone, now realizing that her boyfriend hired, like, mercenary killers to come attack the house that she was in, and she could very well have died.
Yeah, I think she sees the caller ID too, and she's like, Crispin.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's like, immediately is like, oh, you fucking dick.
Yeah, because Crispin had ran out, like, halfway through the movie, and we just never saw what happened to him, so it was like, he could have been killed by the killers, and we just don't know that yet, or he could have gone to got help, and now the flashing lights of the police would come, but nope, he was just doing, I don't know what, a nice walk by himself in the forest.
He was just going for a stroll.
Ugh.
Did he bring a book with him? Like, what was he doing for the 2 hours? I need
a little
to know.
Sudoku or something?
Yeah, just chilling. He probably had a whole little survival kit in his trunk, just like,
Oh, that's true. He had his car. He could have just...
Oh, yeah.
Crispin tells Aaron, when he eventually gets back to the house, he tells her that she was not supposed to die. She was supposed to be a witness, so that they could get all of their dad's inheritance, and she could pay off, well, he tells her she could have paid off her student loans, etc., etc.
I'm sorry, Crispin is such a fucking loser. This speech makes me laugh so much, where he's like, we could maybe go to Paris, maybe get engaged, let me know. And it's like, she's covered in blood, there are dead people everywhere, and you were like, what about paying off those student loans?
Yeah, he's like, I know you'll get over this soon, so like, I know you're upset now, but just think about it. She's literally holding like a dripping axe, just like, hello.
It was very funny.
Read the room, Crispin. Read the room.
Seriously. Oh man, it was quite the proposition.
Yeah, because especially, like we said, Crispin had been gone for all this, so
Yeah.
he didn't see Aaron take everyone down. He didn't get the explanation of why she's such a fucking badass. So he's just trying to be like, I don't know how to deal with you. Again, axe dripping with blood, having just murdered everyone that we was sent here to murder you. Like, how do I get out of this? So he's just panicking and throwing engagements in Paris at her. Like, that is anywhere near what she wants in this moment.
Oh my gosh.
But he doesn't even seem that panicked. He just seems like...
He seems very like, why wouldn't you agree? Like, don't you see what I'm
He's like,
telling you?
You're not a threat. You're a little girl. Here's all the little things we can do together. You can go shopping. We can just, get engaged and let's take care of you. And he's like walking towards her completely unconcerned. Like, he does not... You're right. He doesn't understand the threat. But beyond that, he doesn't even enter his mind that she could ever potentially be a threat. Like, he doesn't know her at all.
It did make me laugh that he just seemed completely dumbfounded as to why she wasn't just, like, super excited to, I can pay off my student debt now because everyone is dead.
Yeah, it's like he's thought of this plan in his head, and he doesn't understand why she wouldn't just automatically be 100% on board. He's like, but this makes sense to me, therefore it makes sense to everyone. I have decided that with all this money, I can, start whatever work he's trying to do with that fellowship, maybe be an author or something. He can help her, they can get engaged, he'll live this fairy tale life now. And she's just like, you never ran this by me, because if you had, I would have said no.
Also, do you think he actually intends to keep her around? Because he doesn't seem to really like her that much, except for now she knows that he was involved. So now, like, he's going to set her up to get killed later.
I think he might be intending to keep her around for a while, of course, because he's such that guy. As soon as he has money, he will find some other young, dumb woman to leave her for and fuck. But I do think she's in the plan for a while, especially if she's supposed to be, like, his cover story or alibi or witness or whatever. Like, if you immediately dumped her, that would probably raise some flags.
Yeah, maybe. I just think, like, I don't think his plan is what he's actually planning to happen. He's just like, I'll pacify you for now. You tell the cops that we're cool. Later, I'll ditch you. Or have you murdered.
So now I think we're getting into what I was saying earlier, where I'm not entirely sure if the villain's after plan makes sense.
Right.
It seems, like I said, they planned out the actual killing. But when Crispin's talking to her, he's like, no, we needed you to be alive as the witness of someone who wouldn't benefit from the money at all, but could verify our story. I'm like, A, she's your girlfriend, so they're not going to take her. Yeah, they're not going to take her as, like, a witness who has nothing to do with anything. And, like, B, the police are still going to investigate. Like, do you think they're just going to be like, oh, okay, we're not going to look at your phones or your emails or your money records, especially after you get that insurance money or inheritance from your parents. We're not going to notice that you immediately wire $500,000 to, like, some fucking mercenary group.
And he even says it, too. He steps on the nail, and his DNA is all over this crime scene.
Yep.
Like, all over. They're going to track these killers in, like, 5 seconds.
Yeah, especially, again, at that point where Crispin's trying to be like, we'll get away with this. She's like, no, we won't, because the killers are all dead there. Your brother and, like, sister-in-law are dead back there. Like, they're going to see their phones and their conversations.
Yeah.
It's just like there was so many problems right from the beginning. I'm just like, who's the stupider one? The guy who hired these guys or the guys who made this dumbass plan that had no shot at working?
Again, they're not the smartest. They haven't really had to think for themselves a whole lot in their lives.
Very true.
They're not
For
the smartest.
Tariq, man. Like,
I know.
I also feel really sad that they came in the same car with him and were, like, chatting with him. He's just, like, a perfect stranger, nice dude that they met, knowing that he's going to get murdered in, like, an hour. What did Tariq ever do to you?
Now this is just spitballing, wouldn't Tariq have been a better witness for them? Because Amy's dead, so he wouldn't get anything.
Honestly, maybe they didn't really care who the witness would be. It just ended up being Aaron because it moved that way.
Right.
But you're right. Tariq would have been an unimpeachable witness.
Yeah, because he'd been like, I'm not benefiting at all. She was just my girlfriend, not my wife, so I'm not entitled to anything. Because that means, like, Kelly's out because she's the wife, so it had to be one of the partners, and then he could vouch for whatever happened that night. I think they should have kept Tariq alive.
Yep.
Tariq and his beautiful scarf. So Crispin's giving his little whiny, poor me, it's all about money speech. And I'm like, she's not going to put up with this.
Fuck no. And she does not.
I did not expect what happened.
Take us away. Take us home,
Big
Jenny.
old stab in the neck. Followed up, I believe, by an eyeball stab.
Yeah.
Didn't she say might as well or something?
No, he's like, why? And she's like, why the fuck not?
Oh, yes, okay.
Stab. It's a great line, because I'm like, you don't deserve anything, Crispin. You don't deserve an explanation. You don't deserve I love you or any of this garbage. You just deserve to get stabbed in the eye. Goodbye.
And then I immediately yelled, what the fuck, so loud at my TV, because we had another, to bring it back to Night of the Living Dead again, with less political undertones, but we had Aaron just get shot in the shoulder by the police out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Did not care for that.
The cop who, like, peered through the window, which we were just saying earlier not to do in these situations. Don't go peering around windows of people's houses. The cop did, and saw her kill him, and was like, I don't know what's going on, but I'm assuming she's the threat, so I'm gonna shoot her in the shoulder, because I'm not a good shot, I guess.
But, like, to be realistic, he saw her attack him without any provocation.
Yeah.
She was bad. Also, we should mention that, she managed to get a 911 call out.
Yeah.
911 text at some point. So the cops came, so I think they came guns drawn, knowing that there was a murder
something happening.
situation.
I think, she had said to Crispin earlier that, like, if you send a text to 911, it'll go through as soon as you get service or something like that. I forget how she said it, but as soon as something happened, it automatically went through.
Like, such a good tip, by the way. Even if you get, like, a split second of service, that text might go through.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Very smart. But she's okay. She survives. Just in time for the police officer to open the front door, which she has rigged, Home Alone style. And he dead.
Yep, he
dead.
dead.
It's an axe in the face.
Yep.
Or chest, but like a weighted axe flings itself and embeds itself into his body.
Again, great. But I also think that was a really good, smart trap for her to set. Just unfortunate that none of the killers used the front door.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she's crawling and she's trying to warn the cop.
Yeah, she yells no, but misses it.
Yeah, and that's also going to be awkward for her, because the cop had already called for backups. Now they're all going to arrive, and she's going to be like, okay, so yes, maybe I technically killed a lot of people, but...
Yeah.
Me out.
And the cop did shoot me, and he is now dead, but that's not my fault. I mean, it is my fault, because I set the trap, but...
Yeah.
Can I get a lawyer?
Yeah, seriously, she has to now explain for this entire, like, massacre house, and then they're gonna be like, why did you set that trap? And she'll be like, so I grew up in an Australian survivalist camp.
I honestly wonder, though, do we think that she didn't have to, like, serve jail time? Like, did she survive this and was okay?
If we go off the premise that these people are idiots, as you and Jen have so nicely pointed out, of their lack of escape plan, I think it'll be pretty easy to decipher that she was defending herself.
Yeah, I think they'll be able to prove that it was, like, Felix who had hired the killers and all this stuff and why those people were there. I do have to wonder that once they see that the killer had his, like, head smashed in with a meat cleaver or a blender stuck on Felix's head, maybe she'll have to...
She might get some...
Yeah, she had a lot of overkill. Like, it wasn't self-defense anymore when she was beating his head into a pole. Also, maybe the cop didn't report it back, but she killed Crispin in cold blood.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
So, like, I think she could get a murder charge for that.
Yeah, she'll probably see some jail time, but...
I mean, the cop that saw that is dead, so they won't necessarily know that that's how Crispin was killed. She could have said that was also in self-defense, like the others, but I do think there is sort of a reasonable force kind of issue here, where she went a little far, which I love, I appreciate, I'm glad she beat his head in with a meat cleaver. Yeah. The police might not agree.
Yeah, they have, like, rules and stuff, whatever.
Yeah, whatever.
Lame.
So that's the end of the movie. Should we do some high points and low points?
Sure.
I'll start. I had a hard time choosing for some reason because, as I've kind of mentioned, I didn't know how I felt about the movie. Like, I think I like it. The more we've talked about it, the more I've liked it. I think Erin, though, is my high point. I like that some of the stuff was a bit of a stretch, but overall I also felt she was the most relatable and the most human-like. Like, she reacted the most like a human being, even to, like, mundane conversations. And I also like that she was really the only character we got any background on, even if it was done very explicitly, but I think she was my high point. My low point was that I would have liked to know a little bit more about Felix and Crispin and their reasonings for what I mean, we've kind of touched on it, but I just would have liked to know more. It was a pretty short movie, so I think there was a little bit of room, or there would have been a little bit of room for maybe a little bit of backstory or a little bit more. I thought that my low point was going to be gore related, but yeah, ultimately I just wanted more information. So, also Jackie's conversation about sticking knives in my eye, so didn't like that either. That was
Contact me for more information about stabbing heads. So I guess my high point, which is so weird because I thought it was going to be Austin's high point, and I was going to try and have to figure out a secondary high point. But it was the 80s thriller techno soundtrack that was amazing.
It was
great thriller music. I was like, it definitely made me get more into the movie because it kind of tells you the vibe. It's like a little bit silly, but it's definitely scary. And it's motivating, almost like a building in an athletic movie kind of way where you're like, something big's going to happen. They're going to win the day. I noticed the music for the first time, which I think is Austin's influence. So I liked it. But my low point is the ending. In any movie, I really, really, really hate innocent bystanders getting killed. I just cannot handle it. It's the same reason I can't watch fail videos. I have like an overactive, I'm thinking about this guy's family. I'm thinking about all his colleagues who find him axed. I'm like, he's just doing his job. So I really, really hate a needless, senseless, innocent person dying. So I was like, why did the movie have to end like that? I was so pro this movie, and then it ended, I was like, well, fuck this movie forever. It really soured me, so that's my low point.
All right, that's fair. I'd say my high point is also mostly Erin. I think she's a great character. I love that she's, such a badass, like we've said a million times, but also very real. Like, she's not perfect. Like Austin mentioned earlier, she gets injured and the injury stays. She sets some traps that don't work, like when she has the boiled water on the stove. Like, she still messes up in a very real way that takes it away from being just totally unrealistic that this woman turns into, complete survivor woman. Like, she's still a real human throughout it all, and I really enjoy that. The other thing that I would say I liked about this movie that I didn't really pick up on my first time and that I did more this time was how much they were really dealing with, the class. Like, the family is this very wealthy, elite family. Erin's this really working class background kind of person, and it's sort of the family's willing to, rip themselves apart just over some money. And it kind of made me think that it was actually, a little ahead of its time in a way, because I think in the past couple of years there have been a lot of horror movies and even just other movies that are really dealing with this kind of subject with, Eat the Rich kind of thing, where there was, Parasite, Ready or Not, Knives Out, even the Purge series. So I kind of, I feel like maybe if this had come out in, 2019, it might have hit a little harder. So I did really like picking up those elements of the film. And then I guess my low points, I don't know. I think maybe at the beginning when they're doing the kind of family drama stuff, I think it goes a little long. I don't need to see them arguing nonstop. I think they could have maybe cut to the action a little sooner. I know that's the opposite of what you guys want, where you want more explanations of the family, whereas I'm like, why are they still arguing? Just send the crossbows in. Let's do this.
Unleash the crossbows.
I just want to say I didn't want more talking, I wanted better talking. They still had the same dumb fights about being fat and the whole conversation about how commercials are the new documentary. I'm like, this is useless, and just get to the meat of it and talk about that.
Yes,
Yeah.
I did feel like the dialogue sometimes bordered on telling rather than showing. I don't know how I would have wanted more information, but I wouldn't have wanted it as just an information dump, which I feel like they maybe would have ended up doing if I got my wish, you know what I mean? So maybe it's better that they didn't.
All right. What do we do next?
Quotes, quotes, quotes. I think I have one or maybe two more. There was one Felix quote that was so stupid. He's watching Paul, his dad, die, and he's like, would you just die already? This is hard enough for me.
Yeah.
And then Crispin has one really good quote where he's like, babe, how are we supposed to know that you were really good at killing people? And he's like, which is actually kind of weird, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh boy, that was pretty good. And he's like, let's think about this logically. I really don't know why that stuck out of me. I'm like, yes, let us think about this mass murder logically.
Yeah.
And that's your quotes, quotes, quotes for this movie.
So this is a super low budget movie, $1 million. Opening weekend made $7 million, and then eventually worldwide gross was $26.9 million. The killer with the tiger mask was the screenwriter Simon Barrett. The filming location was an antique home that had been empty for 12 years. Jen, you mentioned it premiered at TIFF back in 2011, but it didn't get its wide release until 2013. There wasn't much in the way of trivia. There tend not to be on these more independent, low-budget movies, but one thing that jumped out at me is that this is considered a mumblegore film, and so my brain was like, what the fuck is a mumblegore film? So I did a little mini deep dive. It's actually mumblecore is the subgenre, which is basically just a low-budget independent film with naturalistic acting and dialogue. It tends to favor dialogue over plot, and focusing on personal relationships, often of people in their 20s and 30s. The first mumblecore film is considered to be 2002's Funny Ha Ha by Andrew Bujalski, and it was a term coined in 2005 at the South by Southwest Film Festival. So then I guess the horror genre of mumblecore is considered mumblegore. And it sounds like the actor who plays Crispin is in, like, most of these movies. So a basic Google search of mumblegore did bring up a lot of listicles, and Your Next pops up in a lot of them of mumblegore you have to see type lists. So that's my little deep dive on mumblegore/core.
I had another piece of trivia that will be of interest to no one except for me, and Austin will probably hate it, but so this film you mentioned is written by Simon Barrett and directed by Adam Wingard. They are a horror kind of like duo that work together a lot. They did this, they did The Guest, they did the Blair Witch remake in 2016, and they've also done segments in a couple anthologies, including ABCs of Death and VHS, which Austin hates.
Yep.
Other directors in VHS include Joe Swanberg, who also directs like rom-coms. He did Drinking Buddies and Easy, and he plays the oldest brother in this film, Drake. Okay. And then another director from VHS is Ty West, who's another horror director I really like. He did House of the Devil, The Sacrament, and The Innkeepers, which is one that you guys will be watching at some point. And he played Tarek, the boyfriend.
Oh, okay.
So a lot of the little directors from VHS are all appearing in this film together, so yay.
It is kind of cool. I think that ties into my mumblecore deep dive, because I did read that they tend to appear in each other's movies, and it's kind of a insiders club sort of thing. That's all I got.
All right.
Jen, what else came out this year? I don't know if we're counting it as 2011 or 2013.
I'm glad you asked. I counted it as 2013. I got really confused trying to figure out what year this movie actually came out until I read what you mentioned earlier, that it premiered at TIFF 2 years before it got released. So I'm like, okay. I'll count the release year, 2013. This is sort of, I think, when the top box office movies all became sequels, because number one was Frozen, but then after that was Iron Man 3, Despicable Me 2, the second Hobbit movie, and the second Hunger Games movie. So I'm like, it's just all sequels. And then the Oscar movies that year were 12 Years a Slave, Gravity, and American Hustle, which I hate a lot. And then sort of just other notable movies from 2013. A Good Day to Die Hard. Jackie's, how does that rank on your Die Hard scale?
It is third, actually.
All right, good to know, good to know. And then the first Purge movie came out that year, and also VHS 2, the sequel to VHS, and Adam Wingard and Simon Barrett also did a segment in that one. So should we just jump into our scores, how we felt about the movie?
I guess we should.
Let's do it.
Jackie, you want to go first?
Yeah.
Sure, okay. So in terms of enjoyment, this is a really hard one for me, because I'm like, maybe enjoyment is the wrong term, because I don't enjoy these movies at all. Like,
what
I'm never
like appreciation.
I'm never going to enjoy any of the movies that you recommend. Like, I just know it. Like, I don't enjoy the feeling of being scared. I don't enjoy watching disgusting things happen. So it's hard to say I enjoyed it. Appreciation score, I said I would give this maybe a 5 out of 10. I do really respect the girl, Erin. She did a hardcore good job. And I liked it up until the stupid cop got murdered. I just really, like, I don't know why, but that really, really rubbed me the wrong way. I'm like, really? I thought this was a survival story and we're supposed to feel good. And you got to fuck it up with your little stunt ending, which doesn't even matter. I just didn't like it. But yeah, I can't like it. Like, I don't enjoy the tension. I don't enjoy the feelings, but I can respect what they did. They did a lot of cool things that were new and interesting, and it it was tense. Like, they built the tension well, so I felt tense. Their mission has been accomplished, so that I'll give them a 5 out of 10. Probably the highest one I've given to a horror movie so far. So that's something. In terms of quality, I was going to give it a little bit on the lower end, but I appreciate that they did this all with just like $1 million. So I think I should give them higher for what they had to work with. So I'm going to give them a 4 out of 10, because the one thing that I kept noticing was how awful the blood was. It was terrible. Never looked like blood. It looked like, sometimes it looked like tea, sometimes it looked like motor oil. I was just like, this is very unbelievable blood. So I was thrown. I'm like, especially when Amy is like bleeding out of her neck, I was like, come on, it's like water. What are you doing? Like, she's not even dying at all. So
it's like at the beginning with the neighbors where they first see your next written on the window, it's like almost pink. Like, it's so not the shade of like blood red. It was fun.
Yeah. I mean, what they did with $1 million, that's like nothing in terms of movie making. So they did a really good job.
Yeah, I am similarly struggling with where to place my rating on this one. I don't find slashers scary, usually. Like, I wasn't scared at any point. There were a few, like, I turned away a few times. It wasn't because I was scared or a jump scare or anything. It was just because it was gross and I didn't feel like watching someone's head get beaten in.
I like that part.
Yeah.
We're all different people.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. So I really don't know where to place it for either of these things. I'm very, very torn. I think I'm kind of middle of the road. So I think I'm going to go higher than Jackie. I think I'm going to say maybe a 6 for enjoyment. I think I like it more now that we're talking about it than I did watching it. And then, yeah, quality, probably about the same. Maybe a 6 as well. The dialogue really jumped out at me. Some of the performances I wasn't crazy about. I think there was room to give us a little more info, but like I said before, it probably would have just ended up being all dialogue, so maybe not. I don't know. That's kind of where I'm standing.
All right, so my ratings will obviously be a little higher. I'll say enjoyment, I'll give it maybe like an 8, maybe a 9. Yeah, it's probably closer to a 9. It's really, like, I think we've argued a few times now where I've described a movie as fun and you guys reject that outright. We just have different ideas of fun, but for me, this is a fun movie. This is like, if I want like a fast-paced, good time, I'm putting on something like this. We got shootings and stabbings and heads bashed in and Home Alone-style death traps. Like, this is up my alley.
I can see where you're getting fun more out of this movie than with, I think the last one you said that about was Grave Encounters. That was not a fun movie for me. But that's also because ghosts scare me. And slashers don't really scare me. They just gross me out. But at the same token, like, Scream is a fun movie. So I can see where you're going with that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for understanding that this is fun for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think enjoyment-wise, I'll give it like a 9. And then quality, I think, you know, we've mentioned there's some flaws in it. Maybe some of the pacing at the beginning with the family, some of the blood. Although I do appreciate that it's all practical effects and not VFX. So I think quality, I'm going to give it like a 7, maybe an 8. I still overall fully enjoy this movie.
Yeah. I'm not mad for watching it, so
Jackie
I guess
is.
that's something.
Jackie always is.
I'm mad that I had to do it, but I'm not mad after it's done. Like, I dreaded it, and I was like, oh god, I have to watch a scary movie. Started it at like 10 a.m. because I'm like, I need this to be done. And I can't watch it when it's dark, and it's going to be dark at 4 p.m.
But you guys made it through. You survived. You are not next.
We're final girls.
Yes!
We're not next.
Do we need to check in on the friendometer? I feel like today
Green.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like
All
today was
good.
pretty painless.
Austin, are you not mad about our stabbing people in the head talk?
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Should we talk about it some more? If you go through the roof of the mouth with the...
Oh, that is a good tip.
Austin took her headphone out. Blood spurting! Just kidding.
What is our movie next week? I genuinely don't know.
Oh yeah, it's Jackie's turn.
So I was torn between 2 movies, but I think I'm going to make you guys watch Terminator 2 Judgment Day.
Fantastic.
Austin, have you seen any of the Terminators?
No.
Okay, so that's what we're going to watch. And it's really apropos because we're in an apocalypse, so yay.
Why are so many of our movie choices too real these days?
I wonder, is it informed by our general state of mind? Perhaps.
All right. So that wraps us up for Your Next. Next week, we're going to be talking about Terminator 2. It's going to be a great time. Jackie's currently dancing and punching the air, so she's stoked. Please leave us a review on iTunes or Apple Podcasts. It really helps. You can follow us on Twitter at I Hate Your Taste or on Instagram at Hate Your Taste Pod. We also have a website, IHateYourTasteInMovies.wordpress.com. There's links there to take you to our merch, which is on TeePublic, so you can find that stuff there. There'll be some more stuff coming out soon. Also, stay tuned. We're going to be having a giveaway in the next couple weeks, so we'll have more info on that as time goes on. Thanks for listening. Bye.